Imagine it's 2014 again. Your parents get you an iPod or a smartphone for your birthday and you instantly download a dozen mobile games that you've heard about. Everyone was talking about these games, and every kid back then was playing them. I think most people look back at these years as the golden age of mobile games. Now for me and my friends, it was exactly that. We all started to get phones in middle school, and that was when we became obsessed with these mobile games. I'm sure when it comes to most of these games now, you haven't touched them in years, maybe even a decade at this point. When I think back to most of these games, I remember playing them for the last time back in middle school, maybe high school. But of all these games, there's one that I just can't forget and move on from, no matter how hard I try. Today we're going to talk about how a 2D mobile game where you jump over spikes became one of the most important games in my life. The road bumps the game hit along the way, and despite the game's lack of updates over the years, ultimately how it's maintained a soft spot in my heart. Geometry Dash was released on iOS and Android on August 13th of 2013. Now the game didn't immediately rise to the top of the charts, and my friends and I didn't hear about the game for the entirety of that year. But when the summer of 2014 came around, the game really started to grow. It rose to the top of the mobile game charts, and YouTubers like PewDiePie started to play them in front of audiences of millions. Every day on the bus ride to school, my friends and I would pull out our phones or iPods and open Geometry Dash. The layouts of each level, paired with the amazing level soundtracks, drew us in and we were addicted. We did whatever we could to pass those levels, and we were horrible at the game, but that didn't matter. It was exciting. All of our hype would crash though, right as our bus would pull into school and our phones would have to go off. We'd eagerly wait the whole school day until the bus ride home to continue where we left off. Now, these were simpler times, and I think that's part of what makes me look back at this period so fondly. School was simple then. It was easy to get good grades without studying too much, and I had a lot of free time to go outside and play with my friends every day. But every time we were on that bus together, we played the game. Whenever one of us completed a level, no matter which one, we were hyped up by the rest of us on that bus. The pure excitement of seeing the icon float into the end screen with the achievements popping up on screen, it was priceless, and it really became a core memory. Throughout that year, we grew from struggling at Stereo Madness to beating all of the levels on the light version. Once we beat that game, we decided it was time to spend big bucks on the full game and continue our journey. Now the problem was, none of our data moved over from the light version to the full version, so we were back at square zero. Now this was a devastating hit for a lot of my friends. Most of them had struggled for weeks or even months to pass the first 7 levels with all 3 coins, and knowing that they'd have to do it all again, they just gave up. Months had passed since we were introduced to the game, and that's typically how long games lasted back then, just a few months. We'd switch to another game and virtually forget the one we had just spent hundreds of hours playing. Now at this point, only a few of my friends still played the game, and the excitement to get on the bus every morning dwindled down. Part of what made this game so fun was the community aspect of it. We never played the game alone, we always did it around each other. But as fewer and fewer of us played the game, those of us who still wanted to play it were forced to do so alone. Now this was the first time I discovered the true community to this game. The motivating factor of encouraging each other to beat levels was something that I'd missed immensely. Even as our group on the bus disappeared entirely, I still had some friends at school who played the game. We couldn't use our phones in school, so we'd play the game at home and come to school to talk about our progress. I still have a core memory of beating Clutterfunk at home, saving the video on every play, and showing it to my friend at school without the teacher seeing. With each level getting harder and harder, most of us started to drop off and give up on the game. By the time we got to Electrodynamics and Hexagon Force, it was only me and one other friend, Ethan. Ethan, however, progressed faster than me, and he took down Electrodynamics and Clubstep before I could, and not just that, I wasn't even close. With the hardest levels being the only ones left, I felt defeated and demotivated. It felt like there was nothing else I could do on the game anymore. Now thankfully, instead of completely quitting, I started to look up level completions on YouTube, and this was where everything changed. I wasn't a big watcher of YouTube at this point. Geometry Dash videos were some of the first online videos I'd ever watched. The most popular GD content at this point was pretty much all the same. Most of the big YouTubers would scream and freak out at each death, which was funny and all, especially with me being in middle school. But it wasn't something that really kept me interested with these videos, especially since all of these YouTubers would struggle on the same levels every time. As I went deeper and deeper into GD on YouTube, I came across the community of the game itself, which was very, very small at the time. Videos from AlexPayne24 and the Mute Troll were some of the first videos I watched that weren't from massive YouTubers. They were from the community itself. I discovered hundreds of user-made levels on YouTube, which was pretty much the only community-based content there was at the time. People would upload completions of demon levels or other hard levels, and they'd get congratulated in the comments. Discovering the community and the tens of thousands of online levels really unlocked a new level of purpose for me within the game. I thought the main levels were the only interesting part, but it turns out that was just the surface. I played level after level online, getting stars and eventually getting better at the game. There were hundreds of levels for me to play that were perfect for me and didn't require hours of practice like Clubstep did. As time went on, more and more YouTubers emerged, and this is where I believe the community exploded around 2016.
Oh my god!
No! 98!
98! Oh my god, stop killing me there!
Those are some videos I remember watching in 2016, back when the game really started to kick off on YouTube. Now around this time, something that also really helped getting this game into the spotlight was Discord. Discord really started breaking through in the gaming world around this time, 2016, early 2017. And I remember creating my Discord server and account in late 2016. And I think I was one of the first people I knew who actually started using it. I really think Discord is responsible for a lot of the game's immense growth at this time. It really gave the community a common place to talk that wasn't just an online forum or a level comment section. And tons of sub-communities started sprouting up everywhere.
Holy shoot, I almost touched like 6 spikes, okay.
When Update 2.1 of the game was released in January of 2017, the game really reached new heights, at least on Steam. The average player count that month was nearly double the highest it had ever been before, and this was the year I met some of the coolest people I know in the community. The community of the game was at an all-time high at this point in terms of excitement and growth, and some of the best content creators in the game's history really started to grow around this time. This was the year, for me at least, that I felt the most involved in the community, and I really miss it. Now, despite the game's excitement and hype at this time, something was going on behind the scenes. So from 2015 to 2017, updates to the game became more and more stagnant. From 1.7 to 2.0, a year and 3 months passed. That's 4 updates in just over a year. 2.1 took a little longer, about a year and a half for one update. Having to wait a year and a half at this point was pretty rough for those who played the game on a daily basis, but little did we know it was gonna get much worse. Besides the small update 2.11 in November of that year, time and time went on with no update for the game. Because of the lack of updates, a lot of the hype with the game came from the Demon List, a compilation of the hardest levels in the game. People kept creating and verifying harder and harder levels, and the community continued to grow and gain interest and excitement. Now, for many casual players who could never attempt these hard demon levels, the lack of updates really led to boredom. Content creators did their best to make the game interesting, but most of the content during this time was the same. Now, this was about the time that I moved on from the game, 2019 to 2020. I'd occasionally play, but I wasn't creative enough to make the game interesting for myself or for others. Since I had my YouTube channel, I tried whatever I could to make videos, but I just didn't really enjoy any of it. I also had just started college in late 2019, so my life was really starting to get difficult. I actually had to balance school and swimming, and when I did have free time, I wanted to play something that I could really enjoy, and Geometry Dash just wasn't that game for me. During COVID of 2020, I tried my hardest to enjoy the game again with all my new free time, but nothing worked. I felt hopeless, and I just moved on completely. Now, for years I barely touched the game. I still had the app on my phone, and I'd play the games occasionally on long car or bus rides, but just for minutes. That was all I could manage. Now, I never really listened to the music. I would just randomly play levels, get frustrated, and close the game. It was really sad to see a game I spent so many years playing just fade from my mind completely. For these years, I pretty much just forgot about the game completely, and looking back now, it's really hard to tell whether it was the state of the game or just me getting older that really pushed me away from it. But ever since 2017, the game just hasn't really felt the same. It's been over 8 years since I first played this game. Well over 1,000 hours has been spent playing, yet it's been untouched for years. Until a random impulse decision caused me to boot up the game again. Now, for most who see this menu screen, it's nothing special. It's just a default screen you see when loading up the game every time. But to me, in this moment, it meant a lot more. With the music on and the lights out, I sat there, just in thought. Memories flooded back of when I was 13 and playing the game for the first time. This was certainly a nostalgia trip, but it felt different. I've had my fair share of nostalgia trips with games like Minecraft in the past. I've won just about every year with that game. But never had I had such a big nostalgia trip over this game. I went to the main levels and played them all. On every single level, there was at least one part that gave me a specific memory. From flipping my iPad around to beat the upside down parts on Dryout, to loving bass after bass's music so much that I would play it over and over and over, to dying on the end of Can't Let Go more times than I can remember, to playing electrodynamics while skipping my middle school swim practices, to trying so hard to beat Deadlocked on the bus on my way to high school cross-country meets. All of these memories and so many more flooded to me in the hour that I spent on this game. The music and levels stuck out as something so special that day, and I realized that they've been the same for years, even since they first came out. Hearing the music sync up to the levels I'd played as a middle schooler made me really feel like I was 13 again. This game has been in my life for almost a decade now, and no matter how I feel about the lack of updates or repetitive nature of the game, it's something that I'll never forget. It introduced me to hundreds of friends throughout the years, some of which I haven't talked to in 5 years, and some I still talk to today and have met in real life. It introduced me to YouTube, which would end up helping me feel more comfortable with my social skills in the real world.
Swear.
Weirdly enough, it taught me a lot about patience and self-discipline, more than I thought a 2D game could ever do. Whatever direction this game goes into in the future, it's still the same game I remember playing as a kid. The main levels and their music will always be there, and the memories inside them will always bring me back to a time where nothing mattered. Life was easy, and when I was always happy. Before ending this video, I'd like to mention how strong the Geometry Dash community is right now. For reference, when 2.1 came out, the average player count on Steam was just under 4,000, and the peak player count was 9,600. While the average player count would steadily increase post 2.1, the peak player count wasn't beaten until May of 2021. In the 2 years since, the peak player count has never gone under 10,000, and 2023 has been the best year for Geometry Dash ever, by a lot. The game is averaging more players at any given time than previous peak player counts. It's insane. I have massive respect for this community for sticking with the game and being more creative than I could ever dream to be. They've pushed this game to its limits, skill-wise and creatively, and I respect them so much for it. Thank you all for watching.